welcome to the AfroInvest webinar series. This is the third webinar we're going to be doing this year, and I want to say thank you for being a part of this webinar. Just by show of hands, can I know those of us that are, if this is your first webinar, the first AfroInvest webinar that you're joining, can you just use the chat section or use just by show of hands, put an emoji in the chat section if this is your very first time. Let me see how many people do we have joining us for the first time. Oh, awesome. Welcome, Imran. Welcome Chidinma. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome Olamiji. Welcome Joshua. All right, and to everyone that have been a part of our previous webinars, I want to say thank you. I think by now you can call yourself trust experts. Some of the terminologies we use here will not be strange to you. So I just wanted to get a sense of who we had as first timers, so we know how granular to break the conversation into. Okay, so like I said, this is the third webinar series of AfroInvest this year. Today we're going to be talking about accessing inheritance. I'm going to be bringing it from the perspective of basically shares, right? So for those of you that have relatives, loved ones that perhaps have passed on, unfortunately, God rest their souls, and you know that they had shares or they used to talk about shares, and I mean, you want to just know what those shares are worth now and see how those shares can be, let's say, accessed, right? So this is what this webinar will be talking about. For all you know, you just might be sitting down on a bag of gold, right? You don't know what the shares are worth right now. Their dividends have been accumulating over the years. I mean, the SEC have been, I think, released a report about unclaimed dividends running into trillions of naira, right? So perhaps, let's say, your portion of that unclaimed dividend is right there waiting to be accessed. So that's basically is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to explain how you can track those shares and then how you can claim them. And allow me to introduce our speakers. For those of you that have been joining us in previous webinars, you know our, let's say, regular speakers. We have Chisom Wobo, Eboluwa Tubobo, and of course my good self, Damilera Adeogun. I also have my colleague Samuel Lako on the webinar. And for this special, let's say, topic, we had to bring in some expertise from our sister company, AfroInvest Securities. We have Margaret Onochu on the call. She's going to be taking us on, the steps you need to take to track the shares and all of that. Okay, as usual, if you have questions, please use the question and answer section. While we want to encourage chats, right, it is easier to pick up the questions from the question and answer section. So please focus on channeling those questions through that. And please be rest assured that the recording and the slides will be provided to you after the webinar. All right, a lot of people usually ask for these materials. Perhaps you want to share to a friend, someone that needs this, and you want to, refer them to this material. It is very much available. All right, thank you so much for joining us again. We're going to kick off right away, and I'm going to be handing over to Eben. Eben, over to you.
Okay, amazing introduction, Larry. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure, speaking to us once again as regards, our estate, our assets, the whole estate planning. I mean, if you've been following our webinars up to this moment, I'm sure you have heard a lot about estate planning, wills, trust, and what have you. So for today, we are going to be looking at, assessing inheritance, and the ideology behind this was to basically just, help persons that have issues, recovering the shares or dividends of a lost of a deceased loved one or somebody that has passed on, and even your own shares and dividends also. And that's why we are talking about, obtaining a letter of administration. If you've been listening to our past webinars, I'd say that, if someone passes on without a will, the person would be asked to, obtain the beneficiaries of the person would be asked to obtain a letter of administration before they can access the assets of that deceased person. And that is why today we are going to be looking at that and how our AfriTrack product can help you sort of like also make access to the claims of the shares or the dividends of a deceased person, and also just look at how obtaining a letter of administration also is very, very useful to us. So basically, introducing us as to what we mean by letter of administration for those of us that are not too familiar with the term, basically, a letter of administration is just a legal document, right? Which you get from the public registry. The public registry are usually located in the high courts of the respective states, right? And this letter, this legal document allows you to sort of like appoint individuals to manage and distribute the estate of a person that has passed away without a valid will, which we in a short form term it as intestate. So if a person is said to have passed on intestate, it means that the person passed on without a valid will, and that is why the beneficiaries of that person would have to then proceed to the court to get what is called a letter of administration. And obviously, it's not just about, oh, because of this person doesn't have a will, let us go for a letter of administration. No, it also has its own features, benefits, and also legal significance, even though it's a secondary cause. That is, it only comes into play when, where the person passes on will. So what exactly constitutes a letter of administration? Why are we talking about assessing your inheritance using a letter of administration? One, it gives you the authority to administer estate. So in the case where a person passes on without a will, the letter of administration allows the beneficiaries of that person, the family of that person, to come together and say, okay, you know what, we cannot let the asset of this person lie fallow. We cannot leave it to idle. So we need to obtain a letter of administration so that we can be able to collect, to get the authority to collect and then administer the estate of that person. And like I mentioned earlier, it's also in intestate situations, right? In situations where the person that owns those assets, passed on without a valid will, that is when you'll be asked to obtain a letter of administration. Another feature is appointment of administrators, right? So as administrators have to be appointed, right? They have to be appointed before they can be able to then, go through the whole court processes before then obtaining the letter of administration. Because without administrators, there is no letter of administration. There is nobody to be able to administer those estates. And obviously, we talked about the probate process, being that you have to approach the probate registry. You have to go through the probate registry in the respective courts to make this application, to file and say, okay, you know what, we are the family to this deceased person. We want to access the estates of this deceased person, the assets of this deceased person. And obviously, there's also a court issuance, because once the court then issues the grant of probate, it means that the court deems it fit that you satisfied all legal conditions for you to be able to administer that person's estate. And that's the beauty of a letter of administration. So let us not be downcast if we know anybody that has asset or has a particular sizable asset estate, and then we are like, oh, this person passed on without a will. What do I do? How do I access the person's funds? How do I access the person's shares? How do I access the person's dividends? We are going to be explaining to you that there is still a possibility for you to do so, and even more using the AfriTrack service. So, what exactly are the benefits? The why do we need letter of administration? What helps you to say, okay, you know what, you want a letter of administration, right? And we're talking about legal authority. A letter of administration provides you with legal authority. It allows you, because it's legal, right? There are also different administration of estate laws depending on whichever part of the country you're from, that even gives legal standing to letters of administration, right? So there's the legal authority to administrators to manage and then distribute the estate of the deceased person, obviously. It also helps in debt settlement. did the person die, leaving a huge load of debt for the family to take care of? It doesn't mean that, the family will have to bear the brunt. If there are some assets that the person had at the time when the person was alive, even though the person happened to pass on without having a valid will, if you go through the letter of administration process and you are able to successfully get the grant of probate, you can still pay off debtors. You can still pay off creditors rather who may be, want to lay claim to the assets of that deceased person. And obviously, we all know how strenuous it can be if we are having to do with persons that owe us. If we're having to do with a person that we owe funds, how it can quite be embarrassing and a little bit difficult to live. So it also serves as a protection for administrators because um, a letter of administration simply says, okay, these persons are allowed to administer and manage the assets of a deceased, right? So it doesn't mean that because of, oh, this person is managing the assets of the deceased, that this person automatically inherits every problem that comes to the assets of the deceased. No, that's not true. The extent of the person's duty stops at, the administration of the person's estate based on what the court has already granted in the grant of probate, right? So there's a protection for administrators, even access to assets, right? It allows, administrators to access the assets. It allows them to also be able to, go into wherever that this person may have had some assets, right? Be it the banks, be it the custodians, wherever, right? The letter of administration is a very, very good standing document that allows you to, do all of that. And conflict resolution. Oh my God, I cannot overemphasize how this is very important in terms of obtaining letter of administration because most often than not, it's when a person passes on that the family tends to come at loggerheads as to how to distribute the person's assets or share the person's estate. And with a letter of administration, being that administrators would even be appointed, it can help to resolve, potential disputes or any dispute that may seem to be sort of like taking a toll on the family, right? And that's why, we sort of like preach the gospel of letter of administration in the absence of a will. So, moving on, why do we also look at uh, letter of administration? What other, what other futures, what other legal implications do we have as regards a letter of administration? Compliance with the law, right? Because of the letters of administration are bound by a particular administration of estate laws, depending on whichever state. You can be obviously see that this is as the backing of the law. There's a compliance with the law as regards this. So being in compliance with the law, definitely there's a legal backing to it. So it's not just about, oh, what if I inherit this? What if I apply for this a letter of administration? Would it be said to be illegal or will I have issues with the law? No, you're not going to have issues with the law because every single thing that you're doing as regards the letter of administration is lawful, right? So there is also the court supervision. Like I said, it involves you approaching the probate registry, of which you make a particular application. I mean, we're going to see the process in the next slides, but like I said, the court is going to be the one to grant you the probate. So the court will also not just be granting the probate. In addition to that, they would also serve as a means of like a watchdog into the entire process, right? They would provide the means by which there can be supervision and also ensuring that there's transparency and accountability in the management of of the deceased person's estate. So the court also would be, actively involved in the whole process. There's also validity and recognition. Now, I mentioned it earlier that administration of estates um, is very important based on the fact that, uh, it has validity, right? You can be able to say that I want my assets to go like this, and this is how the assets of the deceased person should go, right? So it has its recognition too, because if you go to any institution with your letters of administration, the institution would validly recognize that document. And they can basically, accept it and then treat the deceased person's estate as seen in the letters of administration. It also prevents fraud. There's a prevention of fraud because if you have a letter of administration from a court, no other document speaking to that person's asset can suffice. So because obviously the court is like basically the final stop. So if someone else comes and says, "Oh, okay, we have this social document that this person had before the time of death," unfortunately, the letter of administration will take high standard because we can be seeing that situations like that may tend to be fraudulent, or situations like that may tend to prove a little bit fraudulent. There's also beneficiary protection, right? And one thing that we should also understand is that in as much as, okay, yes, we are trying to a little bit streamline ourselves towards, the after-tax services we deal with shares, dividend funds, and whatnot. The letter of administration can be used to access basically any type of asset that the person has, right? Be it real estate, be it investment. So let us not think that, oh, okay, does the letter of administration only apply to shares and dividends? Just to have that cleared, right? It can be used to access basically any asset that a deceased person had before they passed on without a will, right? So, like I was saying, there's also the beneficiary protection because whatever the administrators distribute to the beneficiaries are binding and are lawful. So the beneficiaries cannot then be, hassled by other third parties that say, "Oh, okay, we also feel that we should have had a say in this property." Whatever the administrators do based on the probate grant given to them by the court is final and is seen in law to be binding, right? So how do you obtain a letter of administration, right? What are the processes by which you obtain a letter of administration? What are the steps for which you can use to obtain a letter of administration, right? So the very first one is, we would have to file the application. You have to file the application. And filing the application basically entails you having to write a letter to the probate registry saying, okay, you know what? You are amongst the other proposed administrators that, you are relatives to the deceased and you want to, apply for a letter of administration to be able to take over the person's assets. Just something basically positing your position as relatives or as concerned persons or as interested parties in the person's estate, and then you wish to be administrator of the person's estate. Obviously, in addition to filing this application, there has to be supporting documents, right? There has to be supporting documents. And it's very important that we always try to have our documentation in place because, which we see in the other slide, this is where some persons always try to, always tend to not follow through the letters of administration because they don't have the specific supporting documents to be able to give to the probate registry. So in addition to providing supporting documents such as your means of ID, death certificates of the deceased person, you can also, you would also possibly be required to, give one or two supporting documents, right? So after that, the court, the probate registry then does a sort of like publication, which obviously will be paid for. It's basically done in the Gazette or your daily newspapers. And this publication notice is basically just asking the public that, you know what, we're about to appoint these social persons as administrators of this social person's estate. If you have any objection or you have a reason why this administrator should not be granted the probate, then should come forward and then, indicate why those persons should not be granted the probate. And after that, obviously, there is a court hearing. Should there be no objection from the public or from any other interested party, that the court then hears, should there be any objection, the court hears the objection and then decide on whether or not to still proceed with the letter of administration or not. So once the court hears and then sees that, the case of the administrators is sufficient enough to become, to actually be given the grant of probate and to become administrator of the deceased person's estate, the court then issues the grant of probate to the administrators, of which the administrators will then use this grant of probate to then be able to assess, the estate and the assets of the deceased person. So basically, this is like the summarized process. There's a little difference in theory and to practical, but this is like the overview, the general process involved in the administration of in the obtaining of the letters of administration, right? So moving on, would also be looking at, okay, what are, basically the typical obstacles that, people tend to face as regards, obtaining a letter of administration? What are the common, the the common stumbling blocks, basically? What are those things that, people may see and be like, I really don't want to go ahead with, having to go through the process of being an administrator or even obtaining a grant of probate. It complements in, and this goes beyond a whole different kind of obstacles, from incomplete documentation, family dispute. For incomplete documentation, like I mentioned in the previous slide, it's very important that we try our best, or we try as much as possible to have quite sufficient documentations that we can use to administer the estate of the person. Because if you have incomplete documentation, you can be sure that your process will have hiccups along the way. Family dispute too, because sometimes having to decide amongst yourself, okay, I'm going to be the administrator, let him be the administrator, let her be the administrator, can be quite a problem. I mean, in my years of experience, I've seen instances where 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line, the family has still not decided on who will be the administrator of the person's estate. And for our knowledge, we need to understand that by law, the law provides that there must be a minimum of 2 administrators and a maximum of 4 administrators in the case of individuals, while in a corporate scene, in the sense that it is a corporate entity that is applying to be the administrator of deceased person estate, the law requires for only one corporate entity. So family dispute itself is even very common. It's a very common reason why people, see, or people encounter obstacles in obtaining an LOA. Lack of awareness. Many people do not know, and that's why we are also having this webinar. Many people do not know about this LOA. Many people just, have this defeatist mentality that, okay, there is no will, there is no asset, there is no will, there is no way for us to access anything. No, that's wrong. If you have the diligence, and if you are, steadfast enough to follow through the process of obtaining a LOA, you'll be able to access the asset or the estate of your deceased loved one, or whoever you are trying to, administer that person's estate on behalf of. Public notice requirement, like I mentioned earlier, in one of the processes for which you have to obtain an LOA, which involves publication. I mean, this can come at a cost. We all know how, publicizing certain things in newspapers could be expensive. This is another obstacle that, some people may see and say, okay, you know what, I don't want to do the LOA. But the good thing is you have a foresight of, okay, if we can able to do all of this, we can be sure that once we've gotten the grant of probate and can access the person's estate, we can even be able to recover funds spent. So it should not be a deciding factor for us not to continue to want to obtain the letter of administration on behalf of whoever we need to administer their estates for. So we also have verification of assets, right? This could also be another obstacle, because having to identify, okay, Mr. Lagbaja, before he passed on, I know he used to have some accounts in Stanbic, but I don't know if he still has in GT. I don't know if he still has in Zenith. I mean, it could be, oh, okay, does this land really belong to him? Having to verify and even identify the asset itself could be quite a chore. So I understand that, many of us may see this as even one of the reasons why you don't want to go ahead with obtaining a letter of administration. But I mean, this is the essence of the whole webinar, to ensure that we are all able to, look beyond these obstacles and then go ahead. Court delays, I cannot even overemphasize this. We all know how a little bit dysfunctional the court system here is. Unfortunately, that's why we do not advise people to, you know, um, take the drafting of that will with levity, because if you do not draft a will, and unfortunately something happens to you, your beneficiary would have to go through all of these issues just to get a letter of administration to administer your estate, which obviously most of us would not want. So court delays also is a very, very, if not one of the major factors why people do not even bother to go for LOA, because of how lengthy it may be. So What are also the common mistakes, that people make when applying for LOA? You have inaccurate information. Maybe when you're filling a form, the informations are not accurate, and then the probate, flags one or two things. That can be a problem when applying and ignoring deadlines. There are certain times where you'll be required to submit some things or do some things, right? So if you miss those deadlines, you can be sure that there will also be problems in obtaining the LOA. Improper asset valuation. I mentioned this earlier, right? Sometimes having to discover where this asset is or are could be quite a chore. So if you're not able to completely or fully identify where these assets are, it means that you have only been able to obtain your letter of administration in a partial manner. That is, there are still other assets that are still left idle that cannot be treated on because you were not able to identify it or you were not able to properly indicate that this is where this asset is. Negative professional advice. Some people may also be like, okay, you know what? It's just a letter of administration. I don't need that free invest. I don't need anybody. I can read. If I go online, I mean, all of us, basically everyone here knows how to use Google. So you could be like, oh, I know how to use Google. I can do it on my own. Yes, there's a possibility, but it's also very important that we engage in professional advice because we've been through it. We've seen the process over and over and again. So we can even help it identify areas where there may be lapses. And obviously, inadequate record keeping, which is basically tied to what I had said about having to ensure that we have our assets well tidied up, we have the inventory of the deceased person well identified, right? Because if we do not have all of these things, then we are going to have issues trying to obtain the letter of administration for our loved ones, right? So what are the differences between letter of administration and the common estate planning tools that I usually talk about? In my past webinars, I've talked about different estate planning tools. I've talked about, wills, private trust, and what have you. Having to juxtapose between these three, how are they different? In what manner are they different? In what form are they different? So in terms of purpose, right, a letter of administration is issued by a probate court. Like I said, it's available when a person dies intestate, while a will basically is available when, the testator, the person was able to, draft a legal document at the time when they are alive and say, okay, this is how I want my assets to be shared. But for a trust, it's basically an arrangement where you have a settlor trustee sort of like relationship for the sake of your beneficiaries. So in terms of appointment, right, for a letter of administration, an administrator is appointed. For a will, the testator basically appoints executors, obviously, but the will is created by the testator. The testator appoints executors who would be responsible for, administering that person's will. While in terms of a private trust, it can be established during the settlor's lifetime, and then the instructions can even still be carried on as to even after the settlor might have passed on. In terms of authority, obviously, letter of administration gives you the authority to be able to administer the asset, like I've been explaining. For a will, like I said earlier, it allows you to name an executor who can, administer your estates, while a private trust can also give you the authority to be able to, direct the trustee as to how to manage your assets. And in terms of conditions, here we have it. A letter of administration is necessary, like I said, where there is no will or the person dies intestate, while for a will, it's basically it's testamentary. It comes in effect as to when the testator dies. While for a private trust, obviously you don't need any probate process. It's basically an arrangement between the settlor, the trustee, for the sake of the beneficiaries. So we all need to understand that having a letter of administration, obtaining a letter of administration rather, for the sake of our deceased persons, for the sake of our loved ones, is very important because I mean, yes, they made the mistake of not having a will before they passed on, but it's very important that we are all able to understand and be able to see, okay, how can we still access the assets of this person? How can we still do something about the estate of this person? And that is why, I'll be handing over to my colleague Damilare, who will then be ushering us into the other part of this webinar, where we'll get to see the importance of AfriInvest, helping us track this, the shares, dividends of our deceased person, and how we can also use letter of administration to make this process seamless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eben. Wonderful presentation. I think one of the things that stood out for me and that I would like the audience to know is that the letter of administration is not just for shares. It covers every form of asset class. Okay, so you have to bear that in mind. And when you're approaching us, don't just think, oh, it's only shares. That we have a focus on shares right now because we have a unique, we are uniquely positioned to help you because of our relationship with our AfriInvest Securities sister company, who Margaret represents. And that's why there's this focus on shares. But know that the letter of administration has a broad cover in terms of asset class. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Eben. All right, so now we're going to be going into the importance of AfriTrack. The question you'll be asking yourself is, okay, I know that my dad had some shares, but I don't know what shares he had. I don't even know what they're worth now. So how do I come about knowing the value? Like I said, you just might be sitting down on a gold mine and not know. Okay, so that is what Margaret is here to tell us about. She's going to walk us through understanding how these things are tracked and you need to know with respect to this process. All right, welcome, Margaret. I'm going to hand it over to you right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Loud and clear, Margaret.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ebonluwa, for that detailed presentation. And at this point in time, I'll be taking you through AfriTrack services. So here at AfriInvest Securities Limited, we have this product called AfriTrack. So now that you know about how to go about getting your letter of administration, now let's assume you've gotten your letter of administration. The next thing for you to do is to swing into action, which is why we are introducing this product to you called AfriTrack. AfriTrack is this unique service that helps you to recover all your outstanding shares and dividends. It's a comprehensive service pack offered by our company, which combines recovering of shares, recovering of unclaimed dividends, reconciliations, and consolidations of multiple shareholdings accounts. So just to be a little bit detailed, so we know that when it comes to the dividend space, that space there's a lot of funds that are in that space that we are sitting on as an individual or as an estate, right? So this discussion is actually going to be about individual shares recovery and also how to recover your shares for your loved ones that have passed, right? So I might be using the word interchangeably. So now, when it comes to dividend, like I said earlier, we are sitting on a gold mine on that space. So statistics have it that there are millions of naira that has been untapped from dividends recovery. And it might be that your funds is there, the funds of your loved ones are there, and why and what are we doing to recover those shares? So that is why if you subscribe to AfriTrack services with us, it's going to help you to reconcile these shares. It's going to help you to also recover your unclaimed dividends and even outstanding shares. Now, over time, people used to buy shares in different names. So now, let's say GTB is selling, they just fill the form, buy GTB. They can buy GTB in Damilare, Onoachu, Damilare. They just, at the end of the day, you have a lot of investment that is scattered out there and you don't know how to go about it, how to put them together, or how to help your loved ones put this investment together. Also, when it comes to AfriTrack investments or AfriTrack, using AfriTrack service, I don't want to scare you, but I just want to be as transparent as possible to let you know that there may be hiccups when trying to, when you're going through this process. you can see the long process that we had in obtaining letter of administration. We also have some process when it comes to reasons why this request may slow down a bit or may look as if it is stalling. So the number one challenge you may face is that the registrar's analog mode of operation, they are still using those analog methods, right? So this can also make the process a little bit slow. Also, registrar's mode of operation, different registrars have different ways of operating, right? So you might visit data max registrars and they might say, okay, just scan the document and send to us. Well, another registrar, for example, will say, we request that you come in person. So these are the different modes of operation that we are talking about. Also, delay in registrar's response. There may be delay in registrar's response because most of these registrars, in fact, all the registrars, they try their best to do due diligence when it comes to shares recovery. Because in this space, again, there are a lot of fraud that may happen in this space. So they need to be very careful that they are dealing with the right administrators. So you might experience little delays in their response. But I mean, the good thing about subscribing to AfriTrack is that we have a personal relationship with these registrars. So in most cases, we step in and make these hiccups make it very, very seamless for you. Also, signature irregularities. Like I mentioned in my first example, you must have bought shares and signed. Some people just buy shares and just sign with their initials, AOE, right? For example, and now it's time to claim these shares. And you probably have a proper signature and you're signing. That is signature irregularity. So it might not fly. Another registrar will say, okay, come to the office. They will turn the screen and show you what you had in your system for you to resign. Another one will say you need to go to the bank and get banker's confirmation of letter. So these are some of the hiccups that you may face when it comes to subscribing to AfriTrack, but not to scare you. We are here with you. We are guiding you step by step, and we are using our professional relationships with this registrar to make sure that you go through this process seamlessly. But so that we are not hiding any information from you, that is why we are bringing this to your notice. Also, I need to also let you understand the importance of AfriTrack. This is the benefits of AfriTrack. AfriTrack is going to help you to recover dividends, recover your dividends. And then the number one thing that you're going to be doing, or the number one benefit of this AfriTrack is global search, because once you subscribe to AfriTrack, we are going to be conducting a global search for you. Now, what global search does is that it gives you a true picture of all the shares that you hold, right? So we do a global search with CSCS, and CSCS will give us everything that you have in your name. And that way you can, at a glance, see what you hold or see what your loved one had before they passed. Shares recovery, I've mentioned that, and I'm just going to speak on it again. It's going to help you to recover all your lost shares. A lot of people have stacks of certificates in their wardrobe. That certificate cannot give you money. That certificate is invalid. They may be invalid and they may all be stale dividend slips. So now, if you subscribe to AfriTrack, we are going to help you to recover all those shares that you have, as well as your dividends, as well as your stale dividend slip. And also, lastly, we are going to help you to consolidate your multiple accounts. A lot of people still buy shares. They buy from AfriInvest, have an account with other stockbroking houses. With AfriTrack, we can help you to consolidate your accounts, and you can just have one portfolio. That way, you can be able to make proper decisions when it comes to your accounts. AfriTrack is a very, very unique service, and it's a service that people have testified, people who have subscribed to this service have actually testified that they got benefits from this service. So personally, before I just quickly wrap up, I want to tell you a personal story, right? Um, some time ago, my dad just stumbled into a dividend slip, right? And that dividend slip, he didn't understand what it was. So he just sent me a picture. Maggie, can you confirm what this is about? And we kickstart a process. The good thing is that he was alive, he could do some of the signing and all of that. That is why I'm saying this AfriTrack, aside the fact that you can use it to recover your loved one certificate, even as an individual, because he was alive, you could go through that process, and you don't want to know how much he was able to get. And these are money that you don't even, it's not money that you had kept somewhere. It just comes like, oh, I didn't even know I had this money, and now I have it. So that is a very, very clear example of what AfriTrack service can do. If you are going to be going through this process, you need to subscribe to AfriTrack, and then we will go through the process with you, and you will be glad that you did. I'll be waiting for you in the comment section while I hand over to Damilare. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for shedding light on that aspect of the webinar. Thanks so much for pointing us on how AfriTrap works and how we can take advantage of that. All right, please, for those of you asking, yes, the slides will be presented to you after, sent to you via the email you used to register for the webinar, and the recorded version of the webinar will be gotten across to you. So please be rest assured. Thank you so much, Margaret, again. I also like to remind everyone, please use the question and answer section for whatever questions you have so that we can answer them at the end of the session. All right, so we're going to be running you right now how the entire process works. How do I start? Where do I go? What is the next step? What do I do now that I'm interested? For those of you having this question, Chisom will be here to clarify everything. Chisom, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dami. And thank you so much, Margaret, for, laying a strong foundation in terms of AfriTrack, and to everyone as well. So I'm not going to really speak on a lot of things. So we just get into how, the services work together. Margaret has mentioned the process of AfriTrack and what it is about. So to understand it is to use it. Understanding it is to use it to consolidate all of your shares, all of your dividends that is missing, and all of that. And it's also important to know that if, for example, you have a loved one who is no longer here, is a process that you can use in tandem with the letters of administration. So AfriInvest Securities helps you with AfriTrack, and then we help you with obtaining letters of administration. So I'll just quickly run through what are the benefits of using this service. Our expertise and experience cannot be emphasized. AfriInvest Trustees and AfriInvest Securities, they're a powerhouse in terms of assisting individuals with their needs. So it's important to note that, like Margaret has said, this process can be tedious. So you do need a corporate entity to guide you. We will take away all the stress and bring in our expertise. We have that professional standing relationship with the registrars as well as the probate registry to assist our clients to ensure that this process is as seamless as possible. What we now do is to save you time. Typically in Lagos, obtaining letters of administration should not take you more than 3 to 5 months, is it? But usually, because of the irregularities that can occur, you have this process taking as long as 1 year. Partner like us, it saves you that time and energy. So it's very important that you start having these conversations with us as from this moment. Impartiality is very important, like Ebo has stressed. In terms of administering estates, you see that there are certain family dynamics that you do need an objective person to sit in that position and act as neutral as possible. Okay, and then in some cases, there are debts that an estate might need to pay off, or even in the distribution of the assets at the end of that long process. We've had instances where people who we have helped to get letters of administration for their loved one has said, what, I don't think I want to go through this process. AfriInvest Trustees, let me create a trust, or let me, even get a will, or even appointing us as executors. So it is very, very, very important. And then peace of mind is very key in terms of understanding, in terms of the benefits of, this process, peace of mind, reducing the stress that it would take to, for individuals who maybe are very old in age and, they don't even know where some of these documentations are. We would assist, making this process very seamless. So quickly moving on, what is the steps you need to take to begin? Chisom, I'm interested. AfriInvest Trustees, I'm interested. AfriInvest Securities, I'm interested. What do I do? Just simply reach out to us via our emails on AfriInvest Trustees at afriinvest.com and AfriInvest Securities at AfriInvest Securities Limited at afriinvest.com. And then what now happens is, if, for example, you're going to need an AfriTrack, obviously, an initial sum of 5,000 naira will be required to begin the process. And depending on your need, there will be a need for the global search, like Margaret has said. And then for the shares, we will then, provide you with information on whether, the registrars that you had initially bought the shares with from are no longer in existence. We have a list of that information, and then we can now begin the process of retrieving that from those houses into our position. And now, for instances where you're a beneficiary or you are a loved one of a deceased person, what happens is that we have to ensure that you are actually a beneficiary to that estate, and you begin to ask you questions and ask for certain documentations. And one of those documentations might be that you will require a letters of administration or a grant of probate. And in any case, if you don't have it, we will then begin that process for you and obtain it so that you can start to enjoy your assets or even the loved ones. Okay, so and then in the case where you might need to appoint us as executors to start that process for you, there are applicable fees of 10,000, and that is a statutory fee, and then also a 10% estate duty tax, that is for Lagos. In Abuja, for example, it's 2%, but it all depends on the value of your estate. So it's also very important to know that this process is it could be a strenuous process, but we would hold your hand because of our relationship with the registries to assist you to be able to bypass some of these hurdles and ensure that you get to the finish line and happy at the end of the day. So I think at this point, we will just, delve right into the questions and answers, because I can see that there's a lot of questions that we need to speak to. So I'll hand over to Damilare now to take up from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chisom. I think even personally, I think I've learned a lot of things, and I want to believe that our audience too have benefited from this webinar. So we're going to be going over to question and answers quickly. We have very limited time, so please, we're going to take very limited questions. Okay. Okay, one of the questions we're going to take is this Tosin said, must the letter of administration list all the assets of the deceased? What if you discovered an asset after you've obtained the letter of administration? I'll be directing this question to Eben to help us with.
Okay, thank you very much, Damilare. That's a very brilliant question. So no, in as much as we try to encourage, administrators to identify extensively the assets that the deceased person had, should there be any instance in which some assets were not included as at the time when the grant of probate was given, you can still, yes, administer the estate of that person. What you have to do, depending on the particular jurisdiction you are in, that is like I mentioned earlier, there are different administration of estate law depending on the states you are in Nigeria. What you have to do is you just need to approach the court and then inform them of that assets that was not included in the initial asset inventory. Then the court may then request that you do a supplementary inventory or to file whatever necessary application that you need to do as regards that person's estate. But yes, in a short form, you can still access assets that were not included at the time when probate was given.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Evan. Thank you. Okay, this question will be directing to Margaret. So, how can they access AfriTrack? Do they have to send an email? Is it through an app? How exactly can they access it reliably?
Yeah, thank you very much. You can access AfriTrack by sending us an email, and also you can access AfriTrack by downloading our Afri Investor 2.0 app. It's there on the app. You can just subscribe on it, and then we will get a notification that you have subscribed to this service. Alternatively, like I said earlier, you can also email us at brokerageteam@afriinvest.com, and then we will reach out to you and give you all the necessary requirement that is needed for these services.
Okay, thank you. One more for you, Margaret. So this person is asking, Chidiber is asking, for one who does not have an account with AfriInvest, right? How and wishes to get AfriInvest to assist them with tracking their shares. How do they go about it?
Yes, so it's almost the same thing. You need to download Afri
Okay.
Investor 2.0 app and sign up, because for us to treat AfriTrack for you, we need to be able to know our customer. So when you download our app and sign up, there are some KYC documents that you're going to be providing, like your ID card, utility bill. We'll verify all of that. So that we know that we are actually relating to a true customer, So we need to have your details, then we can now proceed to AfriTrack.
Okay. So someone was asking for contact email addresses. Here they are. In the earlier slide, we had mentioned AfriInvest at trustees at afriinvest.com. Also mentioned AfriInvest Securities Limited at afriinvest.com as contact email addresses. Okay, so this person is asking, can you expatiate on the process of obtaining the letter of administration? In the interest of time, we might not be able to do that, but like I said, the webinar slides we provided and the recording, so you get to listen all over again and get answers to those questions. Okay, so I'm going to refer to Mr. Joshua Fato Kimi. Some of these questions you asked are personal. I'm able to give you the answers right here. So just send us an email and then we can take it up on a one-on-one basis. Okay, so this person is asking, probate fees can be a challenge. What taxes are the administrators required to pay? Then LA is also required when you have, I don't know if this is a question, but the question I can pick out of this is, what taxes are administrators required to pay? Ebmo, I'll be channeling this question over to you.
All right, thank you, Damnari. So there are quite a number of fees that are applicable in an LOA. Statutorily, right? By law, you are required to pay the sum of 10,000 naira for the application form. After you pay the sum of 10,000 naira as an application form, after you pay the sum of 10,000 as application form, then you may then be able to then proceed. Once you've gotten the grant of probate, the government is going to take 10% of the assets listed in that asset inventory. So if you've been opportune to look at the letter of administration application form, the form where you get to take to the respective institutions, right? There's a particular list that's usually on the form. So all of that, the government is going to consolidate all of that and then take a cumulative 10% of whatever is left in the estate of the deceased person that you want to administer the estate on their behalf. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Eva. Thank you very much. For those asking for contact details, you have the contact details displayed on the screen. Let me check the chat section to see if there are questions. Okay, someone's asking for the email again. So it's trustees@afroinvest.com. Let me, yeah, so you can see it's right over there, right here. So trustees@afroinvest.com. And then Afroinvest Securities Limited. The limited is in full, please. I beg your pardon. It's limited, not LTD, at afroinvest.com. So this person is asking, so this person, okay, so some of these things, there are no context to some of these questions, so it'll be difficult to answer them. But again, you can send us an email and they'll be able to answer you. Okay, for Mr. Jonathan Evelso, that is asking, that mentioned that we scheduled a Zoom call. Please, if you can shoot us an email, we regret this, we can jump on another call and then have this conversation, but it's not something we can exactly start conversation about here right now. Okay, so a lot of these questions have been about how do I have access, AfriTrack. I've been trying to use the app, it's not working. So we've given email addresses that you can channel your request to, and would be more than happy to attend to you via email addresses. We've given you 2 email addresses, the AfroInvest, the trustees@afroinvest.com and the AfroInvest Securities Limited at afroinvest.com. Alternatively, you can use the email addresses of the individuals listed here. This is the email address for our speakers, and Margaret, of course, has our email address also listed there. So this person is asking, Margaret, aside the initial payment of 5,000 naira, what else do I need to provide for the global search?
Thank you very much, Damilare. So the aside the 5,000 naira payments, the next thing you're going to be providing is a letter. So there's a letter that you'll be writing to AfroInvest, authorizing AfroInvest to carry out this global search on your behalf. So if you email us, we can send you a sample of this letter. And also there are some other charges that will be paid to CSCS, a fee of 1,000 naira to subscribe. And once the report is ready, they also charge a printing fee of about 536 naira, depending on the number of pages that you have. So basically that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, so this person is also asking, I have my father's share certificate of transcript, but I don't know his CSCS number. Is this written on the share certificate, or how can they go about this?
Okay, so the CSCS number is not written on the share certificate, and it doesn't matter if you have that certificate or not. So even if you don't have anything, at least you know where the shares is, or you know what shares he has. So you can reach out to us and we'll take it up from there.
Awesome. Thank you
Yes.
very much. A lot of questions we would like to take, but I mean they seem very personal in nature. We can't start asking those questions right here. It's too confidential. So please shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy to respond to you. For those of you saying you have the CSS number, you've obtained the LOA, how do you proceed? Just shoot us an email. There are some questions we can't exactly answer now because of the sensitive nature of the details we require to be able to answer them. So this will bring us to the end of our webinar. We want to say a very big thank you to everyone that has been a part of it till now. You started with us and you stayed up to this point. We really, really want to appreciate you. Please be reminded that this is not a one-off webinar. This is a webinar series. hosted every quarter. And our next webinar will be coming up in Q4, early Q4, so most likely around October, November. So please be on the lookout for our emails, register for these webinars. You have friends that you know definitely need this knowledge and this insight we've shared in this session. Please, we're going to be sending you the webinar slides. We're going to send you the recording. Forward this to them and let them have a taste of what you have you've experienced today. And like I said, you never can tell. You just might be sitting on a gold mine. Imagine someone that bought shares like as far back as 10 years, 20 years ago, right? If you had the right stock, imagine what those share prices would have been. Imagine what accumulated dividend would have translated into. So in a manner of speaking, don't sleep on it. All right. Thank you so much for staying with us all the way to this point. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week ahead. God bless you.